This is norm reference. The key to understanding this is to understand, if you don't get all that, don't worry about it. Understand that with a norm reference system, somebody must win and somebody must lose. And somebody's got to be somewhere in the middle. Most of the people are not winners or losers. They're sort of in the middle. Right? And you say, well, how does this relate to education? This is what we've used for many years and still use in some cases. Okay? We sometimes decide who gets to go to colleges or universities based on this model. We sometimes decide who gets the opportunities in terms of jobs, in terms of progression based on this model. Okay? So this is, now again, I'm just telling you how these things work. Somebody wake Sister Rose up there. She's going to get a little bit too much sleep. Okay? But I just want to tell you how this works. Okay? I'm not making a value judgment on it. If you ask me, do I like this model? I don't. I don't think this is the way to do things. But I'm just telling you this is a system. And this is predominantly what we've been using for many years. All of these other systems, criteria-based education, outcome-based education, standards-based education, they are all, in one way or another, a reaction against this model. If you heard Kenneth Cooper come up and speak, if you heard Carr come up and speak, one of the writers in your article, okay, if you heard those people come in here and speak, they would, almost all of them are going to talk about this model and why it isn't any good. That's because they're trying to show you something else that works better. Does that make sense? So, this, you might say, but that doesn't make any sense. It may not. But remember when we talked in an earlier class about something called a zero-sum game? You guys remember that discussion? Okay? A zero-sum game is, I don't think it's a healthy way to look at the world. I don't. I think we should look at it that there's always things, if we share with each other, there's always more out there. Anytime that you can share with someone else, usually they'll turn around and share with you, and there's more opportunity for everybody. But a lot of people don't believe that still now. Okay? So what we have is we have a zero-sum game mentality, which means that if there's only 12 pieces, right, then if I give 4 to Lakshmi, and I give 4 to Neat, all I have left is 4 for me, because there's only 12 pieces. So if I'm greedy, and I want 11 pieces, then I will only give Lakshmi a half a piece, and I will only give Neat half a piece. Right? That's a different way of looking at things. Does that make sense? This thing, this standards-based thing is different. It says that if you set this as the objective, notice this. Now, again, I'm not necessarily speaking in favor of or against President Bush. I just picked this up as an example. You can pick up any example. There's a lot. You all have your own curriculums. There's objectives in those curriculums. There's standards there. You can pick any one. But here's my question to you. If you have we're going to make up 100 students. So you have your school. You have 100 students come in, starting in kinder. Right? So you have kinder, and then how many years is that? Kinder to grade 1, 1 year, right? Grade 1 to grade 2, 2 years. Grade 2 to grade 3, here they are. What is that? 3 years, right? At the end of 3 years, kinder, 1, 2, 3, actually it's 4 years, right? Because you count kinder too. So there you go. So you got 4 years. 3 grades plus 3 grade levels plus kinder. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah? That makes sense? So here's my question. Out of 100 students, if that's your standard, how many of them can get there? How many students can get there? It might sound like it's not a trick question, and it's a simple question. But I'm not talking about what their difficulties are. We're going to assume they have their difficulties. One of them is a student from Japan that just got off the plane and knows 9 words of English. Another one is a student both of whose parents graduated from Harvard and can speak 5,000 words of English and can read English when they start school. But still, my question is this. I'm not asking about the individual kids. I'm asking, out of 100 kids, how many of them can get there?
All of them.
All of them, right? It might be hard. You might have to differentiate. You might have to do after school with a kid, right? But all of them can get there. Does that make sense? Now let's go to this system. Let's look at this system. If this is success, if this is winning, okay, we're going to assess the kids and decide whether they're winners or not. This is your model. So here's the question. How many of them can get there, approximately? About 20. No more than 20, right? That's it. Okay? So can you see, because what I really am interested in about standards-based more than anything else is I want you to look at the readings because there's good tools in there. There's good examples that's useful for you to try to understand. But what I really want you to see more than anything else is why are some of these models coming out? Why would they be coming out? And how are they different? Can you see the difference? I mean, does it make sense what I just showed you? Right? Do we see that? Okay, that's really what we're talking about. That's what standards-based is about. Okay? So when you start to get into the details, and some people say, well, you can't measure effort, you can't do this, you can do that. Those are just details. That's just how it's applied. The key to remember is that this is what we're doing. It's a shift in thinking. Okay? And it requires kind of a leap of faith. A little bit. Right? You have to have something of a belief in what people can do. You have to have a belief in students. Right? Because the truth is, this is easier. Let's be honest. Come on. What is the most enjoyable student to work with? Come on. Be honest with me. Are these students fun to work with? These guys, they're kind of boring, aren't they? I mean, sometimes. But what about these guys? Would you like to have a class full of these guys? Who wouldn't? You see what I mean? So our traditional way of looking at things, again, none of this is being critical. I'm not sitting here saying, this is terrible what we're doing, because I'm involved in it. I'm an educator. Right? But what I'm saying is this view. This is a problematic view for many reasons. Here's what you got to remember. You have to remember this. We all live on the same planet. And there's now, what, 7 billion of us, according to the latest statistical results. We're pushing 7 billion, aren't we? I don't think we're there yet, right? But we're getting close, is that right? Is that about right? We're getting close to 7 billion? 6.8 billion, okay? There's 6.8 billion of us. Now let me ask you a question. Because on a world scale, it's probably worse. If you're in an industrialized country like the United States or Canada, you can have the 20% winners, right? But if you are in a country such as Bangladesh, for example, okay, or maybe even Thailand, did 20% of us get to be winners? No, it's less, isn't it? How much would it be in somewhere like Bangladesh, or maybe some of the places that people in here are from? And I'm not being insulting, but the reality is what? Is that we have less and less winners, and more people who are getting, and the truth is, what's getting bigger, if you really draw this the way it is today, what would be the biggest piece of this? Be honest with me. The middle? Maybe. Anybody got a different opinion? I think so. I think this is getting bigger and bigger, isn't it? And this is getting smaller, and this is getting bigger to a certain extent, right? But not as much. So, we're not doing necessarily a macroeconomics lesson, but think about it this way, because we're educators. We're here to look at the future. The truth is it sustainable? First of all, I look at it, I say, well, is it right? Is it moral? But even beyond that, I mean, I don't think it's right to have a system set up that only a few can win. I'm not very comfortable with that. But even if you're comfortable with that morally, is it sustainable on our planet? Can we continue to have a small percentage of people monopolizing the benefits, whether they be academic benefits, economic benefits? And that's one of the reasons we keep tearing apart our planet. You know, the country I come from, Canada, this is embarrassing as a Canadian to admit. We have something called the tar sands in Alberta. Okay? Now, for many years, for the last 15, 20 years, Canadians have always been right at the top in terms of environmental consciousness. and you know, being sensible and using our resources sensibly. And we've actually gone into countries, other countries in the world, through the Canadian International Development Agency and said, hey, we need to be more responsible, and we've helped countries to be more careful in the environment. But now, we discovered something called the Alberta tar sands, and we can get oil out of there. Now, it is the dirtiest oil in the world, period. The Saudi oil is totally clean compared to what we're doing. Oil in Pakistan and Burma and Afghanistan and Iraq and Iran is way cleaner. What do I mean by dirty oil? Here's what I mean. There's more greenhouse gas emissions, more carbon per barrel. A barrel, you get big oil, comes in barrels, right? You suck it out of the ground, you put it in these barrels, and you put it on a tanker or you put it in a pipeline, right? And you ship it somewhere. There's more dirty emissions, stuff that wrecks the environment, per barrel from tar sands oil than any other oil in the world, period. Right? And us Canadians, we're out there saying, but there's lots of money in this. We can get rich. So we're sucking that oil out of the ground. Okay? I had one of our teachers who just came here from Edmonton, Alberta, and that's the province that has the tar sands, Alberta. And she said to us today, we were sitting in the lunchroom, and she said, yeah, our province is really rich, and we're destroying the world. And now, I mean, she summarized it just about as well as you could. She's a 28-year-old teacher, but she sees the whole picture. Our province is as rich as anywhere in the world, but we're destroying the earth. That's this model. That's this model in reality. Okay? So this reaction of educators, and I know I've spent a lot of time on this, but I want you to see that when you look at some of the new models that are out there are not only serving students, but they're serving all of us. Because we have to find ways to live with each other and work together. And that's really what this is. That's what standards-based is. Okay? I actually just wanted to give you an overview of what it is. And what I would rather do now is, rather than me keep talking, is I'd like to see what questions you guys have about this. Because if you have questions about, if you ask me specific stuff from the reading, I'll confess I'm not an expert on everything in that reading, but I'll try to comment on that. But if you want to ask me, because we've done this in my school, we're not done yet, actually, we're working on it, we're implementing it. Okay? So I can give you some ideas as to how this works if you have questions. I'm hoping there are some questions, because I'd like to just turn it over to you guys now to ask questions and discuss. Yes?
I'm sorry to disagree, but aren't standardized tests geared towards non-referenced, or aren't they non-referenced?
When we talk, yes and no. You're right, exactly right. We have to be careful when we talk standards-based education and standardized testing. Are, you know, it's confusing because the words are exactly the same, but they have nothing to do with each other. Okay, so because like standardized testing, like the SAT, the GRE, give me some other ones. The TOEFL.
GCSE.
GCSE?
Yeah. IGS.
Pardon? These are all standardized tests. This is a high school test. This is a test to get into graduate school. This is obviously, I think everybody here knows what that is, right? This is English, right?
British system.
British system, British curriculum, right? And then this one?